Warning, listening to the following podcast may cause your pharmacy to experience extreme success. Common side effects include of listening to this podcast are greater knowledge, improved performance, and higher revenue. This is the Pharmacy Podcast Network's coverage of the McKesson Idea Share 2017, recorded live from the Ernest Morial Convention Center in New Orleans. Sponsored by the McKesson Pharmacy Technology and Services Division, MPTS. McKesson Pharmacy Technology and Services provides pharmacy owners the technology infrastructure to manage, grow, and compete at a national level while serving their local communities with the best healthcare services. Be sure to listen to this special 12th podcast series dedicated to the empowerment and success of community pharmacy businesses across the country. And now, here's your host of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, Todd Eury.
Hi, this is Holly Lewis. I'm Senior Director of Pharmacy Performance Advisory Solutions for McKesson, and you're listening to the Pharmacy Podcast.
Hey, Holly, welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
This is a treat for me because I have been in contact with you for years. You're a fellow Pittsburgher, and I never had a chance of meeting you face to face. So meeting you now through the podcast is just amazing.
Awesome. Yeah.
So tell me about a little bit about your background, how long you've been with McKesson, and what does Idea Share mean to you?
Sure. I've been with McKesson for 16 years. I started out at a small company called TechRx that was acquired multiple times and became McKesson. Mm-hmm. When I first started, we were in the very beginning stages of designing Enterprise Rx, which was a lot of fun and a lot of work, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
I've had just about every position at McKesson, from QA to development to product management, support, implementation, you name it. Written contracts, so sold stuff, but it was a lot of fun. I got a lot of really great experience. Idea Share to me is a very good chance to meet and talk to our customers about their business problems, which is what I focus on. It's not necessarily about the technology, it's about the problems that they're having with their business and how the technology might help them solve it.
That makes sense. I always think of Idea Share as the largest think tank for the business of pharmacy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so your role is really interesting to me because as someone who understands the challenges of the business of pharmacy, not even in community alone, but a myriad of verticals of pharmacy, whether that be compounding or long-term care or specialty or community, your background has allowed you to really collect all of your experiences and put this into this very special role. So what I wanted to ask and talk to you about today is several different sectors of what you do to help pharmacies succeed and become more profitable, as well as providing better customer service and patient services to their customer patients. So first of all, let's talk about the division or the sector of your services as a consultant, Productivity Optimization Advisory Solution. Tell me about that.
So what happens there is for customers who are having issues freeing up resources to do clinical, the key is you need to be more effective at filling prescriptions and efficient.
Makes sense.
So a lot of times the staff is just so buried that they don't have time to step back and really take a look at where are the defects in my process, where am I not being efficient, and they just can't see it. So I'll go in, stand in the back of the pharmacy, ask a couple of questions, and I'll do an assessment of where I see the issues being. Then what we'll do is we'll baseline some metrics of efficiency, whether it's rework or decline rates or whatever, and then we'll work through a project plan to change some of the processes so that we can get to a place where they're the most efficient that they can be, which in turn frees up labor for them to do clinical services.
Absolutely. That makes absolute sense. Which takes us to Revenue Advisory Solutions. So tell our listeners how that plays into the business of pharmacy.
Yeah, so all pharmacies are under pressure, reimbursement pressure. They're not making as much money as they used to, so they really need to find new revenue streams, whether that be offering a mail service, expanding into long-term care, using a central fill facility to get their cost of dispensing down, or implementing new clinical services that will bring in additional revenue. So I'm able to go in and work with them on, what their 3 to 5 year plan is, help them build a business case to justify, which way do we want to go. And then I actually can help them implement that technology to support that as well as the processes.
That is so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So next in line is our expense reduction advisory solutions, which makes absolute sense that if you want to create new revenue sources, let's make sure that we're not wasting and reducing expenses as much as possible. So tell us about that.
Yeah, so of course, from an expense perspective, labor and inventory are your biggest expense. I do focus a lot on inventory because you're actually using cash to bring those drugs into your pharmacy, and do you really need to have those in there? So it's really the optimization of the ordering and the whole inventory process to get your expensive drugs out of there, just-in-time ordering, making sure that the cash is free and that their metrics are all really good. Their inventory turns or day supply and inventory, whatever.
I can see how the release of MedSync within the 3 systems makes a lot of sense because that helps to reduce inventory as well.
Absolutely.
So you're probably consulting and talking about how the implementation of MedSync program will help them.
Yep. And even auto refill. Because that allows them to do auto refill as well as MedSync, allows them to do just-in-time ordering.
I like under the information about transition, change management, and advisory solutions, you mentioned reducing technology implementation cycle time. As a vet of selling a bunch of pharmacy management systems myself, that was the biggest challenge, was implementation. Not because of the system per se, but because they had to invent a whole new workflow in order to make that system work well for them.
Yep.
So let's talk about transition change management.
Sure. So what I do there is I actually go in and document their current process so that I can figure out with the implementation of the technology what is going to change. We document that, work with the customer on a communication plan for their employees so that they understand exactly what's going to change and what they'll need to do when the new technology is in place.
That makes so much sense. Setting that table or stage for them initially before ever even signing a new contract for a new pharmacy system can put them at ease. Because when I ask pharmacists, what's the number one thing about your business that you can't stand with regards to new vendors or new solutions? And they said it's the implementation change. It's the pharmacy system change to then have to retrain all of their staff about this new process and or about this new system. And it slows down productivity. It makes employees frustrated. There's longer wait times for patients. So by setting the stage with regards to change management and giving them a heads up, just knowing what's coming, even that gives you a sense of peace about such a big change in a pharmacy.
Yeah, reducing the unknowns, I think, goes a long way to making sure that people are going to be comfortable with the change.
Right. So from your perspective, someone who really has seen pharmacy changing over the years, what do you foresee as the greatest challenge coming and or is here right now for pharmacies? Number one. Number two, on the horizon, what are you most excited about?
So I would say the biggest challenge has been going on for several years, whether people know it or not, and that is operational excellence. You have got to be operationally excellent at what you are doing in filling prescriptions. Because if you're not going to be able to do the clinical services, the MedSync, the other patient added, and even as we come to pharmacists as a provider, to being able to add additional services from that, they won't be able to do it if they're not operationally excellent, because you're not going to be able to afford to hire additional people.
So what are you excited about?
So I think I am excited about pharmacists as a provider. I think that's a great idea, and they are healthcare professionals, and I never understood why they weren't providers to begin with.
Me either.
But they're healthcare professionals who are trained to give that kind of service. So I'm excited about that.
If you're not a sick patient that has some kind of specialized condition that you're going to some very specific physician, and you're just the average patient needing some kind of health care, you're seeing your pharmacist more than anyone.
Yep.
You're seeing them more than your nurse, more than your doctor. So to not be considered officially from a CMS perspective, that is, an actual healthcare provider, that's a head scratcher for me, because these pharmacists throughout the communities are seeing more patient issues and healthcare issues, and have the ability to be preventative healthcare providers more so than anyone.
Yes, I agree.
I can't wait. Yeah, that's on the horizon as well. So what about technology? What's like the most exciting aspect of technology today for you? Is it mobile? Is it CPS? Is it APIs between different pharmacy systems? Like, what is it that gets you excited from a technology perspective?
So really, I think it's about the data.
Okay.
It's exciting that we're able to integrate all of these products together so that the workflow is very seamless for the pharmacy users, between CPS, APS, and all the other integrations that we have. But I think we have a real powerful story to tell about the data. We don't even know where that could go.
Right, and using it.
Yeah.
Because when I first heard about predictive analytics and the use of pharmacogenomics, where you can tell if a patient can even break down a medication in their system, and when I started thinking about the future of medicine and how digital health is changing things, I thought it all comes back to data. If we can teach our healthcare teams, the physician, the nurse, the specialist, the pharmacist, to all leverage the data, they'll actually be able to look ahead of a patient's condition as well as a patient's life and give them coaching to help mitigate the risk of something happening like a heart attack or your diabetes getting out of control or cancer or anything like that. So data, I think there's a digital health, I call him my digital health godfather, John Nosta. If you've never heard of him, look him up. But John Nosta says that the invention of the wheel and the invention of being able to use fire, he goes, using data the right way is going to be just as impactful to human race as those tools were, hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Yep.
So that's what's exciting for me as well, is leveraging data and what that can mean for true healthcare outcomes, as well as predicting things to make sure that we're not running into the same condition over and over again. Because heart disease is out of control, and cancers are out of control, and HIV, Hep C, opioid addiction. So I think data can be leveraged to position the pharmacy in an interesting place, since they touch the patient more than anybody else.
Absolutely.
Well, I thank you so much, Holly, for being on the Pharmacy Podcast Show.
Sure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
This is Chris Castagna with the Pennington Apothecary, and you're listening to the Pharmacy Podcast. Yeah? Okay.
Hey, Chris, welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast. Is this the very first podcast you've ever been on?
It absolutely is. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. We're at the Idea Share 2017 in New Orleans. What do you think of the Idea Share? Why do you invest time and money to come to this thing?
Honestly, this is the first one that I've attended in 15 years, so I didn't really know what to expect. But having gotten here and been through the show a couple of times now, I found it to be, I'm trying to figure the best way to put it, probably better. Able to kind of communicate with other pharmacy owners and share our problems and successes and failures, and it seems to be helpful in that sense.
Pharmacists and pharmacy owners have done a bad job at endorsing themselves to the marketplace and really supporting each other. So Idea Share is like this big pharmacy business think tank that gives you guys the opportunity to do that. And that's why I like coming to these conferences.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to say earlier, is that it gives me a chance to share my ideas and see what's helpful maybe for somebody else who's in a similar situation.
So this series, we're partnered with McKesson's Pharmacy Technology and Services Division, and what I like to hear about is, from a pharmacy owner's perspective, what you really need from your pharmacy management system. And you happen to be on Pharmacy RX, is that right?
Correct. I've been on it for 15 years now
Okay.
at all 3 of my stores.
So give us an overview of the system. And by the way, tell us the size of your pharmacy. You have 3 pharmacies, and what part of the country is it in?
They're all located in central New Jersey,
Okay.
around the Princeton area.
Okay. And tell me about Pharmacy RX.
Pharmacy RX has been, my first store that I opened 15 years ago was in a town called Pennington. That was my first store, and that was, Pharmacy RX was what I instituted at that time. And I've been able to grow with Pharmacy RX throughout that time. When we are filling prescriptions and working every day, all the technology, we don't really try to get too caught up in. We just need it to work. We need to adjudicate claims. We need to help us with prior authorizations. And Pharmacy RX has been great that way.
Now, have you implemented the MedSync program yet?
I have not, and that was one of the things that I learned a little bit more about here at IdeaShare.
Very good. So we've heard from a lot of pharmacy owners about being able to automate something that they're doing manually to ensure that their patients are staying compliant on their medications. So what kind of impact do you think that's going to have on your patient base and your patient care?
Well, obviously compliance is the biggest issue we face, not only from an economic standpoint, but also from a healthy standpoint from patients. So if we can have something that helps us facilitate that, I think that's a big plus.
So what, from a reporting perspective, what are you using in Pharmacy RX? What's like the go-to report that you go to every day?
We try to reconcile our claims as best we can. It's not always an easy task, but we're able to generate reports that show what we did that day, what we billed out to our third parties, and what we can expect in payment at some point down the road. So that it helps us with cash flow, estimating cash flow.
And what about exterior services that might play into supplementing a patient's health? For example, a patient with diabetes, are you able to kind of link into the system to find solutions for them that might be in your inventory or might be accessible from McKesson's greater inventory?
I try to do as many of these. Pharmacy RX has webinars from time to time, and I guess that's probably some of the things that they illustrate at that time, or some of the new releases or things that help us do our job every day.
Yeah, there's a clinical program called CPS that will definitely help you as a pharmacy owner kind of look at other things that could supplement a patient's care.
Yeah, and this is the first that I was exposed to it here this past couple of days, so it's something that we're going to look at and consider.
That's good to hear that you're picking up new stuff to bring back to Pennington and be able to move forward on, because if you're going to make the investment to come, it's not just the Cajun food that you come here for and Bourbon Street, right?
That certainly is one of the reasons, but the hurricanes too.
The hurricanes. So what's on the horizon for your business? Are you looking at acquiring other stores? Are you looking at doing other stuff?
So we just opened a third store about 6 weeks ago, as a matter of fact.
Congratulations.
Thank you, I think.
Okay.
Congratulate me later. And it's a much different model from my other 2 pharmacies.
Okay.
So we're hopeful that, that's going to be successful, but we think it's the way that retail pharmacy has to go.
Are you doing medication therapy management there with any of your patients?
We will. I'm sure that's going to be contractually required of us from some of the third parties. But it's, like I said, it's a different take on healthcare.
Excellent. Well, you know what, Chris, I really appreciate you being part of the Pharmacy Podcast, and I hope that you're now a new listener, and you'll have to definitely pay attention when this episode comes out to hear what you sounded like, right? Thank you so much, Chris.
Thanks, Todd.
Thanks for listening to the Pharmacy Podcast Network's coverage of the McKesson Idea Share 2017, recorded live from the Big Easy, New Orleans, Louisiana. This podcast is sponsored by the Pharmacy Technology and Services Division of McKesson, MPTS. Idea Share is about helping pharmacy owners and operators focus on improving their business knowledge, leverage the industry's most effective technologies, and deliver innovative resources needed to improve a pharmacy's performance and maximize profitability. Be sure to listen to all the podcasts from the Idea Share 2017 special series and contact McKesson Pharmacy Technology and Services to learn more about the latest in state-of-the-art technologies and the best software management systems available in pharmacy.